Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to the Karuul Alerts add-on guide. With this add-on you can track virtually anything you want to in Rift, including ability cooldowns, boss mechanics, damage over time, spell durations, and a whole lot more. In this guide I'll be showing you how to create a variety of Karuul Alerts that will drastically increase the playability of your character. Before I start the guide, however, you will need to download and install the Karuul Alerts add-on from the link provided, and then extract it and put it in your add-ons folder accessible in the game by selecting System, then going to Add-ons, and then selecting the Open Add-on Directory button at the bottom of the add-ons screen. You may need to restart Rift or at least reload your user interface with this command for it to take effect. In this guide I'll be showing you some common K-alerts and how to create them, so let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to name our K-alert. We're going to come up to the top where it says name. We're going to type in Dire Corruption. That is the damage over time ability that we're going to be tracking today. So moving on down to the next bar, you're going to select what type of ability it is that we're going to be tracking. This is going to be a buff, since when you select buff, you can track anything that is going to be under the target's raid frame or in your buff bar here. So we're going to select buff. We're going to come down to this buff text box here. We're going to select, tell it what buff we want to track. We're going to do Dire Corruption. And as you see, as soon as we start typing it, it's going to pull up and say, is this what you mean? So we're going to go ahead and double left click on Dire Corruption until it shows up in the image here. You can see that the image is the exact same as our Dire Corruption on our bar, so this is likely the same one we want to track. Moving on down, buff length, you don't need that. That's an optional thing there. One more, we got self-cast only. This one makes it so that you only track your Dire Corruption. If you have a couple of different Reavers in a raid group and they're all casting Dire Corruption, if you don't select this, it'll show you all of their Dire Corruption timers. So whoever has the highest timer will show up in your K-alert. So you want to make sure that you select this whenever you're setting up K-alerts for damage over time abilities. Moving on down, we have who you're going to be targeting here right now. It's on player. We want to put that on target so we can see the K-alert will pop up whenever your target has Dire Corruption. Moving on down, we're going to see active and missing here. Active is going to say, hey, is this currently active on your target? Missing will say, okay, if it's missing, show the K-alert. So this one right here will show it if it's active. This one will show your K-alert if it's missing. So we're going to do active. Moving on down, Dire Corruption doesn't have anything to do with stacks. We'll talk about that more later on. Combat only won't matter too much on damage over time type of abilities, because what this will do is if you select it, it will only show up while you are in combat. Well, if you have a damage over time ability on a target, typically you're going to be in combat. So that's not important, but you can select it for now. Moving up to the upper right here, you'll see we have a text box. You can put whatever you want in here. Just for now, we're going to type the letters D, O, and T, damage over time. You have a couple different text options here. The opacity will allow you, of course, to make it fully see-through or make it fully solid. It's up to you. 100 opacity, the letters will be solid. You won't be able to see through them at all. Size 30 is going to be pretty giant, so we're going to go ahead and I'll actually show you what 30 looks like here really quick. We'll go ahead and hit save, and then we'll edit layout. And when you create a K-alert, by the way, they'll usually always be in the upper left corner of your screen. So you go to edit layout, you'll left click and hold, and you will drag that K-alert to wherever you want to put it. I usually put mine around this area here. So you can see that DOT, the letters are very, very giant, so we're going to go ahead and edit that now. So we're back to the K-alerting system here. You can see that we have deselected Dire Corruption. That is typical of the K-alert system, so you want to make sure that you go back to Dire Corruption and double left click on it to bring it back up. So we're back in here again. We're going to go ahead and change the size of our DOT to 15. So now we've halved the size of this text. We're also going to select where we want this text to appear with these two boxes here. So right now it's inside of our icon that shows up, and it's center of the icon. So what we're going to do is we're going to change it to outside, and we can make it top. So now it'll show up top up here. Alternatively, if you want it to show up bottom, you could have it show up here. You get left, you could show up here. Right, show up here, so on and so forth. But we're going to make it outside and top. So we've done that. Now we're going to move on down. You can also change your font and your colors if you wish. I typically will leave mine default, but that's totally up to you. Then we have a really important checkbox here called timer. If you click this guy right here, it'll say you'll have a size option and you'll have where you want the timer to show up at. So right now we're going to leave this as inside, which is going to be inside the icon, and center, which is going to be center of the icon. And with a size 30, you will pretty much fill up the entire K-alert there. One last note before we save and see what this looks like. We do have a scale option here. This is how big the K-alert is. As you saw before, the K-alert was roughly around the same size as the action bar icons. If you change this to a 2, it will roughly double in size and make it much larger. The scaling is much more important when you're doing boss mechanic K-alerts though, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So now that we've got our K-alert created, we're going to go ahead and hit save. We're going to hit edit layout, and now you can see we've moved the DOT text above the icon there, and it fits the icon a little bit better. It's not giant. So we're going to say, okay, we're happy with that location. We'll leave it about kitty corner with our action bar. Hit save. Now we'll select our target after we get out of the K-alert system here. We'll select our target and we'll pop Dire Corruption. And there it is. We're counting down from 30 seconds. And that is how you create a damage over time K-alert. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to name our K-alert. We're going to go ahead and name it Power Variation because that is the ability we'll be tracking today. Power Variation is an ability that's on your bar, so we are going to select Ability for it, which will change up our options slightly. We'll come down to the Ability text box here. We're going to go ahead and type in Power Variation, which you'll see that it's going to pop up even before you finish typing. We're going to double left click on that to select it and move on down. Now there's two ways you can track cooldown. You can track it by ready or you can track it by cooldown, right? So with ready, the K-alert will display when the ability is ready. So for instance, right now our Power Variation is ready to go. It's not on cooldown. So with this check just like this, it would show up letting you know, hey, you can now press this. This is how I prefer to track cooldowns. However, we will discuss the other way to do it. So moving on over here to the right, if you select cooldown, there will be no K-alert showing up at all until you press the ability, at which point the K-alert will pop up. Now, by itself, that doesn't do very much, but as long as you have cooldown selected and you select timer, it will tell you, it'll count down and let you know how much time you have until that ability is ready. So it's really just personal preference how you want to set that up. But for today, we're going to show you how to do the ready version. So we select ready, we select combat only because we don't want a bunch of K-alerts cluttering up our section over here if we're not in combat. Then moving over to the right, we have a text box. We're going to go ahead and type in Power Variation there. You don't actually have to put any text in there if you don't want to, or you can put in a reminder of what it does, or whatever helps you remember what it does, or how you want to use it. It's totally up to you. So moving on down, of course, we have the text options. Opacity at 100 is going to make the text 100% solid. If you go less than that, it will make it a little bit more grayed out. Totally up to you again. For size 30 is pretty huge. We're going to go ahead and change that to 10. For the position, for the two boxes that do position, right now it's set up to go inside and center. So inside and center, we want to change that. So we're going to do outside of the K-alert icon. And instead of doing top again, we're going to do bottom this time. So now it's going to show up down here. Now moving on down, we're not going to change font or color. We're going to look down here at this warning button here. We're going to go ahead and hit warning. So what warning does is it's going to give you a couple other extra options here. We are going to leave this in the inside and the center because warning is going to be a number countdown. But the important box here is length. So Power Variation is a 60-second cooldown, 1 minute. So what the length is going to do for the warning is going to say, hi, when do you want this K-alert to pop up? If I put length 60, as soon as we use it, it's going to start counting down. But however, if we don't want to know that soon, let's say we want to only know the last 15 seconds before it's back up, we can type 15 in there, and we can hit Power Variation, and the K-alert won't pop up until there's 15 seconds until it comes off of cooldown. For the purposes of this video, we're going to go ahead and put this at 55 just so you can see how it works. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. After I hit save, of course, you want to hit edit layout after every time you create a K-alert because you want to move it to where you need it. So once you hit edit layout, you'll see it's in the upper left corner here like usual. We'll go ahead and left click and move this guy down to where we want it. And you can see in very small letters in the bottom we have Power Variation here. That is a lot of letters. Typically, I would recommend that you don't put a whole lot of like a long string of letters with your K-alerts just because you have to make the font small to not take up a lot of space. So try and be very conservative with your text. So now that we have the K-alert where we want it, we'll go ahead and hit save. We will exit out of our K-alert system. We will target our raid boss dummy here, and we will go ahead and pop Power Variation. Now Power Variation is on cooldown, but as soon as it hits 55 seconds, we should see the K-alert pop up. And we did. So just to play around a little bit, we're going to go back into the K-alert system. You saw that it was ticking down. We're going to go back into our Power Variation by left clicking, and we're going to select length and go down to, let's see, what is it at now? 41 seconds. Let's go ahead and select 32 seconds and hit save and exit out. And now we've got 32 seconds, so we're looking at 34, 33, and now it should pop up. And there it is. And that is how you track ability cooldowns. So the first thing you're going to want to do is name your K-alert. So we're going to come up to the top here and name it Precision Strikes. That is the buff that we'll be tracking today. It is a buff. It does show up in your buff window, so we are going to leave it on the buff selection there. Moving on down to the buff text box here, we're going to make sure we put in Precision Strikes. And Precision Strikes is, you want to make sure you select the one that has the S on it, because Precision Strike is a Blade Dancer ability from the Rogue. So we're going to go ahead and hit the one with the S, which will show the correct icon there. Moving on down, we're going to select self-cast only. It doesn't really matter here, but it's definitely a good habit to be in to select self-cast only for abilities and things so you don't get confused with other players that are using the same abilities. So moving on down, we're going to select player instead of target. Player is going to look at your buff bar. Player is going to be you, so you want to make sure you select that. Moving down a little further, we have active or missing. We're going to select active because we want to see when this buff is actually going, when it's actually on you, when it's actually ticking. One more here, we're not going to mess with stacks too much. I am going to show you a little tiny trick in the text box to display stacks. So moving on down, we're going to select combat only because we don't want to see K alerts when we're not in combat. Moving up to the upper right in the text window here, we're going to show you a little trick. We're going to start off with a left curly bar here, or left curly bracket, and then we're going to go ahead and type in the word stacks, and then we're going to do a right curly bracket there. So that's all you have to put in the text box there, and that will allow you to create a stacks K-alert without creating multiple K-alerts. So moving on down, we're going to do this a little differently to show you kind of what your options are. Instead of doing inside center, we're going to do outside, and we're going to do right. We're going to show you the stacks on the right side of the K-alert. Because we're not putting stacks in the middle, we're putting on them right, we can also put the timer on, and we can leave that on the inside center. So this K-alert here, as it's currently set up, should show you the timer in the middle, and it should also show you the stacks on the right here. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. We'll hit save, we'll edit layout, come to the upper left corner of the screen and drag that ability down to closer to your bar so you can see it better. Hit save, exit your K-alerting system. Now we're going to go ahead and select our target and we're going to start DPSing, because with precision strikes, it is the level 64 ability in the warrior tree that makes attack point generating attacks place a stack of precision strikes on you. So anytime we do damage here, so we're going to go ahead and start doing our damage. So I'm just going to start spamming. You see we have the 1 stack now. It's ticking down. Oh, it refreshed, 2 stacks, and now we have our maximum 3 stacks. And that is how you track stacks of abilities. So the first thing you're going to want to do when you're trying to track a missing buff in K-alerts is, of course, name your K-alert. So we're going to name this one in power, missing. Then we're going to come down to the buff text bar. We're going to type in power, and we're going to left click on that guy. It's not disappearing. This drop down isn't, so we're going to go ahead and click off of that to make it disappear, and then move back. We're going to go ahead and select self cast only. We only want to see our stuff. We're going to leave it on player because we want to track us. Player is you, your character, and your buff bar. Moving on down, we're going to change this from active to missing because we want to see the K-alert when it's missing so we can track it better. Moving on down, we're not going to mess with stacks. We don't have anything to mess around with there. Combat only, you can leave that off because typically when you're outside of combat, you want to make sure you have these buffs up as well. So just leave that off of combat, or you can put it on combat. Totally up to you. Moving up to the upper right for the text, we're going to say something clever like cast me, just so that you know, oh man, I'm missing buffs. We'll go ahead and change that to a size 15 just so it's not so huge. Leave the opacity at 100. We're going to go ahead and put that, we'll go ahead and leave that on the inside there. Inside and center. Of course, it's inside the K-alert and center of the K-alert. For the fonts and colors, we're not going to mess around with those, but you can if you want. We can say, for instance, make this all red if you wanted. We'll go ahead and do that just for fun. So now the text is red. We're not going to do a warning because we don't really care about any seconds or anything. We just care about whether it's on or off. Simple as that. So now we go ahead and click save, edit layout. We left click and hold and move this to where we want it. We're going to go ahead and put this right above our rift meter here. And then we're going to go ahead and hit save. And we're going to exit out. Now right now we're not showing any K-alert here, of course, because we have Empower on us. But say we're in PvP and somebody's constantly purging and you lose this buff. Boom. Now your K-alert's going to pop up and show you, hey, you need to recast your Empower. As soon as you do so, your K-alert will go away. And it's that easy, guys. So that's how you're going to track missing buffs. So the first thing you're going to want to do when creating a K-alert to track resources is, of course, name your K-alert. We're going to name this one Power Tracking because we're going to be tracking our power. We're going to go down to the resource button and click that because we want to track a resource and we want to track our power. So we're going to select power in this little menu here. You can track all kinds of other things as well, but for this video, we are going to be tracking power. Moving down, we're going to make sure we select player because we want to track our own power. We don't care about anybody else's. And we're going to come down even below that, and we can see we have above, below, and range. So, and it'll have a value box here. So we are tracking power. We want to track power when it is below, say, 90. In a typical environment, a raid environment, or a PvE environment, you're not going to want to put 90 because this thing is going to be on all the time. But if you were actually making this alert to actually use it in regular play, you probably put it at something more like 20 or 25. Just so that, because that would indicate, let you know that, hey, nobody's running the 5% ability cost buff, so you can either A, remind them, or B, pull up your masteries and swap your masteries for the 5% ability reduction. For the sake of this video, we are going to put it at 90 so you can see it work. So moving on to the top, we don't have an image with this, of course, because we don't have an ability attached to it. So we are going to have to choose a different image here. We'll go ahead and put the swords here. Looks pretty cool. So moving on down, we're going to also make sure that we select combat only there. For the text box, we can put something clever in there just to remind you. Want to buy power. You can come down here and make the size the same if you want, or change it. We'll go ahead and put this outside and top. If you want, you can change the scaling. Like right now, if we were to hit save and edit layout, this is how big our Kaylert is. But let's say we want to have that a little bigger. We can hit save. We can go back to our power tracker, so hit double click that to bring it back up. Come down to scale, change that to 2, save, edit layout, and now you can see it's quite a bit bigger. So we're going to leave it there. So right now what this Kaylert should do for us is whenever our power dips below 90, it should display this on a scale of 2, and it should say want to buy power. And as soon as it goes back above 90 power, it should disappear. So let's see if that works. So let's go ahead and get out of Kaylerts. Let's look at our boss here. We'll just go ahead and use Viral Stream since it costs 40 power and it'll put us in that range. So we start out using Viral Stream, and there it is. And now we're back above 90 and it's gone. So that's it, guys. That is how you create a resource tracking Kaylert. So in order to make a cast bar Kaylert, the first thing you're going to want to do is name your Kaylert. So we're going to name this one Interrupt Power Variation, or PV. The next thing we're going to do, of course, is we're going to make sure that this is on casting because we want to track this by cast bar. After it's on there, you want to select your ability. We're going to do Power Variation. Now that we have Power Variation selected, we'll double click that to choose to get it selected correctly. We're going to select Interruptible Only. We are going to change this from player to target because we want to track the cast bar of our target. So whenever a target, whatever it is, whether it's a player in PvP or somebody, a mob in open world, if they start casting Power Variation, this Karuul alert will pop up. So we want it to be target. So now that we're on target, we're going to leave this off of combat only there. We're going to come over to the text box here, and we're going to say interrupt this now. So that is what it's going to display when somebody starts casting Power Variation. Now in PvP, if somebody starts casting Power Variation, typically they're probably using it to heal themselves, so you could actually even use this Kaylert in PvP. So moving on down for the size, we're going to make this obnoxiously large at 45 or so size. We're going to make it inside and center still. We're going to change the scaling to 4 so that the actual icon is large as well. And then we're going to change the lettering, of course, to, let's say we'll do it red. Okay, so that's how we're going to set it up. We're going to go hit save, edit layout, and here's our obnoxiously large Karuul alert with red letters. Very difficult to miss. So let's go ahead and hit save and exit out of there now. So we did select target on there, so we're going to go ahead and target ourselves. So now that we are our own target, when I start casting Power Variation, the Karuul alert system is going to look at who my target is and look at that cast bar and display what's happening based on that cast bar. So since we have ourselves targeted, when I hit this, I should see that, hey, interrupt this now. So the same thing would be true if I were targeting this raid boss dummy and he started casting Power Variation. I would see that Kaylert. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to target myself and show you. So I'll be casting this. So when we cast our Power Variation, we should see this Kaylert. Here we go. And there it is, our obnoxiously large Kaylert saying interrupt this now. And that is how you create a cast bar Kaylert. Couple quick notes here, guys. We have 6 different sets here, but we also have a couple subsets as well. So one thing you can do with these is you can have a different set of Kaylerts for every soul that you play, like Paragon or Reaver or whatever else you're playing, whatever class you're playing or soul you're playing, and you can have all of your mechanics-based Kaylerts on a subset. So for instance, you could throw like Brutal Swell from Fenric in there, you could throw all kinds of other different mechanics-based alerts in there in this one subset, and then when you change roles, you can just have them set that same subset. And the way you do that is you go to your macros. For instance, this is on our Reaver Kaylert here. We have Kaylert set equals to 2. That is my Reaver Kaylert. And we have Kaylert subset equals to 1. Now this is for Reaver. Say I wanted to set this for Liberator. I have my Liberator on 1. I would just change the Kaylert set equals to 2 to 1. So you'd make a different macro for each role. And you'd have a Kaylert subset equals to 1 in each one to make sure that it's set correctly. And I'll show you what that looks like. So go ahead and save that. Exit out of there. Go to the General tab so you can see it. And click the K alert. Now you'll see that it set it to subset 1. So that's how that works. That's a neat little trick you can use with the K alert system. The other cool thing about K alerts is they're completely shareable. So if you say, for instance, you have a K alert that somebody wants, you can of course right click that K alert and go to share alert, and it'll pop up a window, and anybody in your raid or group that has the K alert system will pop up in this window. You could left click their name to select them and then come down here and hit share. The other way you can do it is you can share outside of the game if you want. You can right click that. You can also go to export alert. It'll give you this fine bunch of mamma jamma right here where you just right click, copy that, and put it in, say, a Mumble or a TeamSpeak, or you can even put it on a forum, and somebody can come in there and copy that and then come to the K alert system, go to file, and then import set, and of course they could just paste that there and hit import, and then they will have your K alerts. So it's very, very easy to share your alerts with other people, and also to put them across multiple mediums such as TeamSpeak or forums or whatever. But that's it, guys. That's all the tips I got for you today, and that's also concluding the K alerts guide. If you have any questions, as always, please let me know. If you enjoyed this guide, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.